"Mom, you must get so lonely living out here by yourself. We should come visit more often." 3 days. A cool 750 vanished in a flash. That night, Margaret Johnson stared at the credit card statement, her hands trembling. She couldn't bring herself to eat a single bite of the cold meatloaf. "Next time, I almost wish nobody would come." But I could never say that out loud. In a quiet corner of upstate New York, not far from Albany, stands a weathered clapboard house, a relic of a bygone era. This is where Margaret Johnson, a 78-year-old widow, has made her home for over 50 years. Her husband, David, passed away in the spring of 2017. For 7 years, Margaret has lived alone, tending to the house and yard. Each morning, as she opens the shutters, the same familiar view unfolds. Children heading to the school bus stop, the chirping of robins, laundry fluttering in the breeze. But amidst this tranquility, there's a gaping hole. The heavy weight of absence. Just inside the front door, David's old slippers sit exactly where he left them. Margaret can't bring herself to put them away. They sit there, unworn and untouched, a silent reminder of what used to be. For 50 years, Margaret was a stay-at-home mom, dedicating her life to her family. She always put their health and happiness before her own needs and dreams. Now, her only income is David's Social Security, which amounts to around $950 a month. She has to stretch every dollar to cover utilities, groceries, and her high blood pressure medication. "I don't need fancy things," she always says. "As long as I have food on the table and a roof over my head, that's enough." Her voice is gentle, but there's a tinge of resignation beneath the surface. During the summer holidays and Thanksgiving, her son Michael and her daughter, Susan, come home with their children. They say they miss her, but they rarely bring gifts. Still, Margaret always prepares a feast. She scours the weekly grocery ads, trying to remember everyone's favorite dishes. Will the grandkids like this? She wonders. I remember Jennifer loved mac and cheese. She keeps a little notebook tucked away in the buffet where she meticulously records everything she buys for these visits. Ground beef, $15 zero. Michael loves burgers. Macaroni and cheese, $6.50 for Jennifer. Each line represents not just a dollar amount, but a world of love and care. But no one ever notices the notebook. It remains unopened, its pages slowly filling up with memories. One spring, hoping to supplement her income, Margaret applied for a job at the local convenience store. A part-time cleaning position, 3 days a week, 4 hours a day. But the manager looked at her apologetically and said, "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Johnson, but I'm afraid your age might be a problem." Walking home, Margaret sighed deeply and murmured to herself, "Does getting older mean you become useless?" Still, she walked with her head held high. She didn't want to be a burden to anyone or show any signs of weakness. That was her own kind of pride. Each night, before turning off the lights, she sits in front of David's urn and quietly says her prayers. "David, I'm still here. I managed to cook dinner today and get through the day just fine." It's a report to her late husband, and a small ritual to encourage herself. But this quiet, unassuming life is about to be shaken by a single phone call. In late July of 2024, the New York summer was already in full swing. The drone of cicadas filled the air as Margaret Johnson's cell phone rang. The displayed name brought a smile to Margaret's face. It was a call from her son, Michael, who lived in Chicago. "Hey, Mom? We're coming home this summer like we do every year. Just for 3 days. But Sarah and the kids are so excited. They can't wait to have your pot roast again." Margaret chuckled, her heart warming. "That's wonderful, honey. Drive carefully." As she hung up, she let out a long sigh. The smile lingered, but a subtle weight settled on her shoulders. "That's great, of course. But this month, I've only got $350 left." She glanced at an envelope tucked in the corner of her kitchen counter. It held her monthly Social Security check. After paying for water, electricity, and her medications, that was all that remained. "Groceries, I can manage. As long as I don't eat out." Even as she told herself this, a knot of anxiety twisted in her stomach. The next morning, she woke early to drive to the local ATM. She wanted to get her shopping done before the sun got too strong. Standing before the ATM, she hesitated. The screen offered several options: 100, 300, withdraw, entire balance. Her fingers froze. She pressed the cancel button repeatedly, starting over each time. Just take out 300? No, what if something unexpected happens? Finally, she made up her mind and tapped withdraw entire balance. She put the cash into a small envelope and tucked it into her purse, securing it with a handkerchief. All right, today's the day for bargains. Gotta be smart. At the local Piggly Wiggly, she moved with extra caution. She picked up a package of chicken thighs, checking the price tag carefully. Right beside them was a package of salmon fillets, Michael's favorite. But she couldn't afford both. Chicken is cheaper, and it'll feed everyone. She gently placed the salmon back in the display case. Her shopping cart gradually filled with items: ground beef, green beans, potatoes, canned corn, and a few treats. Looking at the snacks she'd chosen for her grandchildren, she thought, which ones did they like again? A bittersweet smile touched her lips. Back home, she started organizing the refrigerator. Thinking ahead to their 3-day visit, she divided the groceries into sections labeled Day 1, Day 2, and Day 3. She wrote the date and planned menu on each bag, taping the paper neatly to the plastic. This way, they won't eat everything at once. It was less about saving money and more about wishing that this happiness could last all 3 days. In the afternoon, while watering her garden, her neighbor Carol calls out to her. "Your family's coming again? It'll be lively around here." Margaret nodded, beaming. "Yes, the grandkids are getting so big and full of energy." But Margaret, you have to be firm, you know. Your house isn't a hotel. You need to take care of yourself, too." For a moment, her heart fluttered with unease. But she quietly shook her head. "It's okay. A mother is always on the giving end, isn't she?" Even as she said this, a nameless fatigue washed over her. Later that night, sitting before David's urn, Margaret clasped her hands together and whispered softly, "Honey, the kids turned out all right. But sometimes I wonder, when does trying my best ever end?" The flame of the candle flickered slightly. Was it just the breeze, or was it a sign of something stirring deep within her heart? It was the second day of their visit. Margaret Johnson's house was filled with the sounds of happy voices and running feet from morning until night. While Margaret warmed up the stew in the kitchen, the grandkids' excited shouts echoed through the house. "Hey Mom, how about we order takeout for lunch? Let's splurge a little for once." That was her son, Michael, talking. His wife, Sarah, already had her smartphone out, scrolling through the menu for a pizza place. "How about this family deal? It's enough for 3 adults. And we can add an extra order of garlic knots for the kids. Oh, and your mom's card is on file, right? We can just use that." Sure, that sounds fine." Margaret nodded with a forced smile, feeling a little uneasy. The pizza that arrived was extravagant. Pepperoni, mushrooms, sausage, extra cheese. The grandkids' eyes lit up as they reached for slices. And Sarah laughed. "Takeout is so easy, isn't it?" The scene at the table looked like the perfect picture of a happy family get-together. But Margaret, who should have been at the center of it all, just took a small piece of garlic knot from the edge of the plate and nibbled at it slowly. "Grandma, you're not eating much," her granddaughter Jennifer said innocently. Margaret smiled and replied, "My tummy's a little upset, honey. I'm not as young as I used to be, so I can't eat as much." The truth was, she did want to eat. But when she thought about how much all that pizza cost, her throat tightened. How much did that all come to? She hadn't seen the price when Michael ordered it, but then the notification from her bank popped up on her phone. Total, 315 tonneau zeros. That was more than a third of her monthly Social Security income. Later that afternoon, Margaret stood alone in the kitchen, washing the dishes. The water was lukewarm. She used the cheap refilled dish soap. Sarah's voice came from behind her, and her words stung. "Hey, Mrs. Johnson, don't you have a dishwasher here? Isn't it kind of a pain to wash everything by hand?" Margaret simply replied, "Well, I've always done it this way." Then she quietly continued washing the dishes. In her mind, she wanted to shout, "I've been doing it this way for years." That evening, While the kids were playing in the living room, Margaret secretly opened her household expenses notebook. She carefully wrote down all of the day's spending. Eco pizza, $315 off sex stacks and drinks, $25. Zero Esru's lunch. Lunch ingredients, $17. 00. Total 350. So much, just for 2 days. Tears welled up behind her bifocals, but she brushed them away with the back of her hand before they could spill. Just then, her grandson Jason walked into the room. "Grandma, we're coming back for Thanksgiving, okay? And we're gonna stay longer next time." Margaret smiled and nodded at his innocent words. "I'll be looking forward to it, dear." But in her hand, she still clutched the receipt she had just finished writing. No one noticed the tear stains that had smudged the ink on the paper. Later that night, Margaret sat alone in front of David's urn. She arranged some leftover stew on a small plate and quietly offered it to him. "David, today was a bit too extravagant, you know." Everyone was laughing. But I couldn't laugh. "But that's okay, isn't it? That's what mothers do, right?" She clasped her hands together. Her fingers were a little crooked from years of housework, but her spirit was still strong. It was the third day of their visit. The summer sun was a little less intense, and the mountain breeze carried a hint of coolness. After breakfast, the family started packing their belongings. By the front door, a mountain of souvenir shopping bags and toys for the grandchildren was piled high. In the midst of this flurry, Michael casually opened his wallet and clicked his tongue. "Mom, could you possibly lend me another 100? I'm running a little short on gas money for the drive back." Margaret Johnson momentarily lost her composure. But she didn't let it show on her face, maintaining a quiet smile as she reached into her pocket. Inside was the last $100 bill, transferred from an envelope a few days ago. "Of course, dear, here you go." She handed it over as if it were the most natural thing in the world. With a brief word of thanks, the family piled into the car. Jennifer, her granddaughter, rolled down the window and waved. "Bye, Grandma, see you soon." Margaret bowed deeply, returning their farewell with the biggest smile she could muster. But as the car turned the corner and disappeared from sight, her shoulders slumped slightly. She let out a sigh, a mother's sigh she never showed anyone. Returning inside, silence quickly descended. The lively atmosphere of just a few minutes ago felt like a distant memory. Only the gentle chime of the wind chimes could be heard. She headed to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Inside, there was half a bottle of soy sauce, a single carrot, and a block of old tofu. Opening the pantry revealed no rice or bread. Gas, electricity, water, groceries, so much had vanished in just 3 days. The electric bill on the kitchen table clearly showed that this month's usage was 1.9 times higher than last month's. Well, I guess that's to be expected. The air conditioning was on the whole time, and the kids were showering so often because of the heat, she told herself. This as she placed the bill on the edge of the table. She noticed, though, that her fingertips were trembling. She then went to the nearby pharmacy. Her prescription for high blood pressure had run out, so she needed to get a refill. She swiped her debit card at the register and entered her PIN, and after a few seconds, an error message appeared. "Insufficient funds. Would you like to pay in cash?" The clerk's calm voice seemed to freeze time for Margaret. She opened her wallet to find only a few coins, not even enough to cover the 30 needed for the medication. "I'm so sorry, I'll come back another day." She smiled and left the store without even taking a shopping bag. Back home, all she found in the refrigerator was an instant noodle cup, given to her by a neighbor yesterday. How kind of them to think of me. She boiled water, poured it over the noodles, and added the seasoning packet. That was dinner. Setting the steaming cup on the table, Margaret clasped her hands together. "Thank you for this meal." Her voice trembled slightly. After eating, she sat before David's urn and opened her journal. In the corner of the page, she wrote, August 8, 2024's, wallet balance, 8:30. It's not the loneliness. It's having to pretend to be okay. That's what hurts so much. The flame of the candle flickered. Margaret closed her eyes, clasped her hands, and whispered in her heart, "David, I'm doing my best, aren't I? But I'm just a little tired. Outside, the drone of cicadas filled the air. It was a sad, mournful sound, as if answering a cry from the depths of someone's heart. It continued on and on. The Labor Day weekend was over, and a sense of quiet had returned to Margaret Johnson's home in upstate New York. Since that visit, she found herself spending a little more time in front of David's urn. She'd sent her family off with a warm smile, but behind it all, she was facing the reality of her dwindling bank balance. Staring into an almost empty refrigerator and wondering, how am I going to manage this next time? Then, one morning, her cell phone rang. The caller ID showed her daughter Susan, who lived far away in Chicago. For a few seconds, her finger hovered over the answer button before she finally pressed it. "Hi, Mom. How are you doing? Listen, I wanted to talk to you about something. We were thinking of coming for Thanksgiving this year for a 3-day weekend, but tell me if it's not a good time. I don't want to be a burden." Her voice sounded hesitant, almost apprehensive, and that's when Margaret did something she'd never done before in her life. She spoke her honest truth. "Well, I'd love for you to come, you know that. But to be honest, honey, your mom isn't as young as she used to be. Grocery shopping and getting everything ready is getting harder, and I get tired more easily. So, if you do come, it would really help me if you could each bring some groceries. And if we could share the cooking responsibilities, that would make it a lot easier on me." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Her daughter was stunned. The mother who always laughed things off, who always said, "It's no problem," was now sharing what sounded like a weakness. It was a first for Susan. After a moment, Susan's voice came back, barely a whisper. "Mom, why haven't you ever said anything before? We've been taking advantage of you all these years. I'm so sorry. I'm really, really sorry." Margaret just smiled into the phone. "There's nothing to apologize for, honey. I guess I always thought a mother was supposed to be the one who just did. Horrius. Everything without complaining. But I'm learning that sometimes it's important to speak up." That night, Margaret slept more soundly than she had in a long time. It felt like a weight she'd been carrying in her heart had finally lifted, just a little. A few days later, the doorbell rang. She opened the door to find a delivery driver standing there with 2 large cardboard boxes. "These are from Chicago," he said. The boxes had Susan's name on them, and a sticker with her grandchild's handwriting. "To Grandma. Lots of yummy stuff." Inside, Margaret found the boxes packed to the brim with groceries, spices, dry goods, and ready-to-eat meals. There were even things like a blood pressure monitor, a thermometer to measure room temperature, and nutritional supplements, as if Susan knew exactly what Margaret needed. On top of everything was a letter. "Dear Grandma, thank you for being honest with me on the phone. After we hung up, Mom and I were really thinking about everything, and she felt awful. So this time, I'm doing the cooking. You just sit back, relax, and read a book. I'll get to make all your favorite foods. I can't wait to see you at Thanksgiving. Love, Jennifer." As she finished reading, large tears welled up in Margaret's eyes. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, the kind that flow when years of unspoken feelings are finally acknowledged and met with love. That day, she wrote in her diary, August 23, 2024. "The day I was able to ask for help. And the day I was told, I've got it. It felt like I could finally share what it means to be a mother." Later that afternoon, as she was watering her garden, her neighbor, Carol, called out to her. "Margaret, you seem to have a spring in your step. Is there anything good going on?" She smiled, a little shyly. "Yes, a little bit. I feel like I've been able to put down some of my burdens, you know." Saying that, she looked up at the sky again. The sky was high and clear, a blue that hinted at the hope the coming season would bring. Early September 2024. The sound of the wind softened, and the clouds drifting in the sky gradually carried the feeling of fall. That morning, Evelyn Johnson taped a small piece of paper to her front door. "Welcome. But please, don't overdo it." Words were handwritten in a rounded script. They gently spoke to the reader, conveying the feeling that this is a place where you can come home and feel safe. This past summer during Memorial Day weekend, As in previous years, the whole family came home. But something was different this year. It was Evelyn's daughter-in-law, not Evelyn herself, standing in the kitchen. "Mom, you sit down and relax," she said. The sight of her skillfully wielding a knife was so natural that it was easy to forget their past awkwardness. After dinner, it was her son who got up and cleared the dishes. Evelyn couldn't help but narrow her eyes as she watched him silently standing at the sink, sponge in hand. Seeing this, her granddaughter smiled and said, "Grandma, you're a queen now." Laughter erupted. In that moment, Evelyn felt a light glow in the depths of her heart. Even though her family was home, she didn't feel exhausted. It was a completely different world from Memorial Day weekends of the past, when she would secretly count down the minutes until it was over. People really can change, can't they? The sound of her own voice as she muttered those words sounded like it belonged to someone else. And she realized anew that the first step toward that change was just one word from her. That afternoon, her grandson said cheerfully, "Grandma, let's go outside for a little bit." Taking her hand, he walked with her to the park. Evelyn couldn't help but narrow her eyes at the pleasant feeling of the breeze, which was starting to feel cool, caressing her skin. Sitting on a bench, her grandson said in a small voice, "Grandma, we're going to celebrate Grandparents' Day in a modern way this year. You're going to be the star. I want you to keep smiling." Those words tugged at her heart. The star. She had always been the one doing things for others, and she had hardly any memories of being the center of attention herself. But now, the fact that this consideration was naturally coming back to her made her so happy that she felt like crying. That night, a friend from the neighborhood called out to her from across the yard. "Evelyn, you've been looking so bright lately. Has something good happened?" Evelyn smiled a little shyly and replied, "Yes, I just tried saying what I was feeling, and everyone accepted it. Maybe it was me who changed." Looking up at the sky, the autumn moon shone quietly, as if responding to her heart. The last page of Evelyn's diary read, "It takes courage to put things into words, but if you don't say it, it won't reach anyone. Selfishly working hard out of loves can sometimes become love that no one notices. So, I won't be silent anymore. Because I love you, I want to be able to say, 'Please help me.' If you are a child, please ask this question once. Mom, does that really make you happy? And if you are a parent, please say this. Next time, don't overdo it. It's okay for me to rely on you too. Love sometimes hides in the form of silence, but a kind word can surely bring that love back to life." Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for watching until the end. If this story touched your heart in any way, we would be grateful if you could spread it with a like or a share. We will continue to bring you stories that gently touch someone's life. We hope to see you in the next episode. Sometimes, love is hidden behind closed doors, in the quiet moments and unspoken needs. It's a subtle dance of sacrifice and unspoken expectation, often leaving those who give feeling unseen and unheard. But with a simple, gentle word, that buried love can blossom again, finding its voice and reconnecting hearts. We are truly grateful you stayed with us until the very end. If this story resonated with you in some small way, please consider clicking like or share to help us spread the word. We are committed to bringing you more stories that offer a comforting presence and a quiet strength to those who need it most. We will always strive to create stories that echo with the silent emotions of those navigating the complexities of family and aging. We look forward to sharing our next episode with you. May it bring peace and understanding to your day.